It is time for me to review Halloween Ends. This was a hard movie to go into looking forward to it because the trailers really didn't do much for me. Although I did like Halloween Kills, I enjoyed it. I don't think it was, obviously it wasn't no Shakespeare of cinema. I thought it was a fun popcorn slasher movie. And so going into this movie, I was kind of concerned because the trailers didn't really do it for me. Don't believe the trailers of this movie. Don't let them persuade you to think that you know what this movie is, because the trailers to this film is quite literally nothing like the actual film. In fact, dare I say that Laurie Strode isn't even the main character of this movie. And I don't want to call that a spoiler. I feel like that's something that people should know. She might be the lead of the film to the filmmakers and to the heart of the story. When it comes to screen time and lines, this one character, well, I will not say his name, he is definitely the more prominent source of this film. And so naturally, a lot of people found that to be a disappointment. Honestly, if I knew that going into the movie, I would have been even less excited going into it. And surprisingly, I did not mind. I did not mind having a new focus of the story. But where the conflict of interest comes in is that this is Halloween Ends. This is supposed to be the final movie. This is supposed to be the one that wraps up Laurie's and Michael's filmography. This movie kind of fell short on that part. I kind of figured that going into the movie, and so when I was watching this movie, I sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed a Halloween movie. At the end of the day, I got a enjoyable yet somewhat lackluster film, and it just all depends on how you view it. As a Halloween movie with nice kills and nice tension building, I enjoyed it. But as a movie that's supposed to send off these characters, I felt a little shortchanged. And that's not to say that the actual ending and what happens is bad, because I think they did something that works. It's just the build-up to it was almost non-existent, and it felt like something tacked on that could have been tacked on at the end of Halloween 2018, at the end of Halloween Kills. Something that could have just happened. What's so funny about this trilogy is that these three movies, they're all Michael Myers, Laurie Strode films, except for maybe this one, but they all feel so different. You watch Halloween 2018 versus Halloween Kills, it feels like two drastically different movies, and the same thing goes for this film. I will say, when it comes to the atmosphere of Halloween, of these three films, I think this movie possibly came the closest to recapturing that Halloween atmosphere of what you don't know what's going to happen. And for that, to explain more, I had to get into spoilers, because this movie makes a lot of bold swings, I'm sure you've heard about it at this point, that you really can't talk about without diving deep into the spoilers to this movie. The spoilers and what you don't know about this movie is what works and doesn't work about it. So I have a tough time reviewing and talking about this movie without walking around it and sounding very vague. But I will get into spoilers, so I'm going to give you my quick score. I'm going to give Halloween Ends a 6.2 out of 10. Now let's dive into spoilers. So basically, the story of this film revolves all around this one character, Corey. He was babysitting a kid one day, and the kid mistakenly, he kicks a door open that makes a kid fall down 3 flights of stairs without the stairs, just over the ledge, and the kid dies. And so he has a lot of resentment from the community for that, which is understandable from both sides. Naturally, he basically, over the course of the film, kind of slowly becomes what Haddonfield made him out to be, which I thought was a very, very good idea. But at that cost, Michael Myers takes a serious backseat. For the first half, he's only in it for 5 seconds. That doesn't necessarily bother me as a Halloween movie. It bothers me as the final installment. So it all depends on how I look at this movie. I can see this film as the final Halloween installment, and it'll bother me. I can see this film as a Halloween movie, just another one of the Halloween films, and I'll really enjoy it. Of course, the last 15 minutes, what they do with that, I enjoyed. I don't think it underwhelmed. I think it's just what underwhelmed is how it tied together. The second act felt very clunky at moments. I feel like there was editing room argument for the second act, if that can just be me. But the way some scenes just went together felt a little weird sometimes. And it's not like it's that weird editing that horror movies do where it cuts back to it later. It's like something like the last scene was this person's working at a hospital. The next scene is, Laurie in the kitchen, and that person that was in the hospital is now there. While there wasn't a lot of transition time to kind of make you feel that time lapse, where it kind of felt like the way it was edited, that the scene in the kitchen was at the same time as the scene of the hospital. Things like that in the editing room that kind of, I don't know, just felt like that throughout the second act. Maybe stuff was cut. I'm not sure. I mean, they released an extended cut to Halloween Kills. Would not surprise me to see an extended cut to this film as well. Possibly a better extended cut, because even though Halloween Kills, I still thought it was a fun movie, and the extended cut didn't add too much to it. What we got that was extended was fun, I thought. My biggest problem, though, is what they did to the character of the granddaughter, because they made her a big dummy, this movie. She made every bad choice in the book, and so did a lot of characters that you wouldn't think that would make a lot of bad choices. But surprisingly, where I thought the writing was the sharpest and most smart, and clearly what the writers cared about the most, was this Corey character. So that's where I'm very torn, because everything they did with him, they didn't do anything wrong. The actor did a pretty good job with what he was given, and for the story that they wanted to tell of Corey, I think that they did a really good job with it, because that slow descent into madness, almost like the Joker meets Halloween, but you see him at the beginning of the movie and he's a very different spot than he is at the end, but you understand that journey. At one point, when Corey gets that Michael Myers mask, when you feel, even though you fear the unknown, the reason why Michael Myers is scary is because you really don't know the person behind the mask. Well, Halloween Ends had something a little bit different to say. It's scary because you don't want it to happen. You know the person under the mask, and you did not want them to go there. So I thought that was a very new, fresh take, because I really felt the freshness when Corey had the Michael Myers mask on and he was just killing all these people. I really felt that John Carpenter voice again, and that was really nice to see. The third act to this movie, even though it did kind of have a jarring jump between two storylines, I did quite enjoy. And even though this movie is not perfect, it has a lot of problems. There's a couple of really stupid plot points where Michael Myers looks at Corey in the eyes and he just kind of sees that he does killings possibly and just lets him go and they team up. But at the same time, I kind of forgive things like that, because at the same time, it's a scary movie. You want effective scares, and wherever we can go to get there, we got there. So even though I am slightly disappointed on the side of that this is the final installment, because by the time we're done with the Corey stuff and we get to the actual Laurie Strode, Michael Myers stuff, it's like, oh crap, the movie's almost over, and then it's done. And the way that she does defeat Michael easy compared to what she had to go through in 2018, and that kind of also undermines the trilogy as a whole. I cannot view these films as a trilogy. I have to see them as solo films, because when you see all three of these movies, they become very inconsistent and very connected, well, poorly connected. And so I can see it in the cynical way of, oh, these are really poorly connected, so these movies suck. Or I can just see them one by one and just enjoy them for what they are, because I'm a sucker for these kind of types of movies, and I just like watching them. But when you see Laurie Strode so prepared in 2018 and he gets away, to Laurie Strode in 2022, she throws a fridge on him and taps his hand to the table a couple times with barely any preparation. He just shows up in her house. So it kind of makes 2018 Halloween feel a little useless, but at the same time, I do have to enjoy these movies for individuals, because I do get enjoyment out of all three. I don't dislike any of these. Surprisingly, I don't dislike any of these. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Halloween Ends. I enjoyed a surprisingly good majority of it. I enjoyed the Corey stuff, even though it did slightly frustrate me in the second act, where it kind of got a little too used to it, even though I didn't hate what I was watching. It's just what I wanted to watch wasn't being presented. But at the same time, my head also asked, so what if the Corey stuff wasn't there? That wasn't there, and then the movie was strictly Laurie Strode and Michael Myers again. I don't think I would have liked the movie as much, to be completely honest, because if it was strictly Laurie and Michael, I don't think we have another movie's worth of material. And that also begs to ask, why did we need three movies? Halloween 2018 could have been one big movie. It could have been a 2.5 hour film, maybe even 3 hour to wrap it up, and with all these ideas that they had for 3 movies, could have been one long Halloween movie, and I think it could have been really good. But stretching out all these ideas into 3 movies clearly didn't work. But yeah, I sit back, have fun with the Halloween Michael Myers stuff, and I do get enjoyment out of all 3 of them, even though Halloween Ends isn't a perfect film, and I understand if you don't like this movie, you think it's dumb. It's just I was fairly refreshed to see some new Michael Myers stuff, to feel that fresher breath of air, not because someone different was under the mask, because it was a new fresh take of someone under the mask and had that same atmosphere but had its own fresh, unique style. And that's something that you could always want out of these type of movies that are these sequel reboot stuff. And I was surprised that this movie big swings that it did. So I will respect it for that. But like I said, 6.2 out of 10. I really can't complain too much. Compared to my expectations for this movie, I'm surprised I'm giving it a score this high. And honestly, when it comes to my enjoyment, this is more like a 7 out of 10 for my enjoyment. But you have to keep in mind the expectations for this movie. Anyways, I will also have a video out on She-Hulk and Rings of Power. I still need to watch the last episode, so I will probably do that as soon as I'm done editing this. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.